Good morning, Hollowed Haven family. This is After Dawn, the show where we sit down to have a cup of coffee with the cast, crew, and creators behind the Hollowed Haven Studios productions. I'm Saul, and I'm joined by my co-host, Scott.
Oh man, every time I do that, I choke. Hey everyone, I'm Scott. Today we're talking about Scion Apotheosis episode 7, Alive. In this episode, we had a lot of role playing and discussion about what to do, and the all of the Scions tried to figure out how they wanted to handle the new bad guys they had encountered. Sorry, still choking. I thought it was fun to listen. We got to see some character development, and some people gained new romantic partnerships, which is kind of nice. But my opinion about the episode is not the only one here. Saul, what are your thoughts?
I am personally a huge fan of planning sessions, of actually getting to see what people think in character and out of character, and seeing how they just see things that are happening, see threats, and how they go about deciding what they want to do about them, and how their character goes about it, especially given the certain relations that some of these threats have to our cast and crew. So I personally adored the episode. But
It was
also,
fun.
mine is not the only opinion here. Today, we're joined by one of the players, Damien, and our very fantastic artist, LufeLufa. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I can't
Hello,
complain.
Luffy.
How about both of you?
Very well.
Pretty good.
I am
pretty
now
good.
anyway. I had a terrible migraine yesterday, but I'm okay now.
Oh,
Ooh.
good.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, we heard about that in the episode. I was gonna ask you about that if you were feeling okay. We were gonna try not to bother you too much if you were still not doing great.
No, I'm all right today.
Very good. Well, sorry about your migraine from yesterday. But since you're feeling better, we'll start off with some questions for you, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've had a few more chances to show off Chris's ability in the last few episodes. How exciting has it been for you to show off Chris's abilities and stuff?
So, I mean, I've always wanted to play like a Steve Austin $6 million man type character who is really fast and really strong and things like that. And I'm always perennially the GM and hardly ever the player. So it was great finally to kind of come online and be able to show exactly what I built the character around.
Yeah, and we were excited to see that kind of stuff happening with Chris. It was pretty fun to watch it. Throwbacks to it, like in the last episode, where it was like, "Oh yeah, hey, I'm the one that carried you and did all that cool stuff."
Right.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like an intelligent based character. I'm like a brawn based character. So all of my abilities kind of lean towards that.
Never hurts to lean into what you're good at.
Exactly.
So, Luffy, first off, welcome to our show for the very first time.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Excellent to have you. Can you let everyone know who you are and why exactly you're here?
Well, I am LufeLufa, or Vanessa, if that's easier. And I do art for Hallowed Haven Studios, and I was the artist specifically for Scion Apotheosis. So I'm here to talk about, the art and some of my insights on it, I guess.
Yeah, and we're
Fantastic.
glad.
I think there's a lot of insight into characters and to themes that can come just from the art itself.
Hmm.
Yeah, we're glad to have you on. We had planned to have you on at some point, so we were trying to figure out which episode, and this worked out great.
Yeah, I'm very excited that I got to come on.
So, speaking of all the themes and everything, you go into the art. What kind of preparations do you go through when you're thinking of art? Like, especially, what did you feel? How did you feel out the characters for Scion? Was there a lot of research that went into it, or was it more just instinctive?
A little bit of both. I feel like whenever I do art I have commission sheets for all of the characters, and they not only give me the physical appearance of their characters, they also give me kind of the emotions, what they're like, the vibe, and then I use that all together to go on and do a little bit of research on, maybe some cool clothes, maybe some of the themes, especially with Scion, the themes of the different pantheons was really, really fun to be able to kind of differentiate a little bit in the styles, even with some of the tattoos that I did on uh, some of the characters. Was yeah, but then it's also kind of like, oh, what would look cool? What would be fun? What makes this character pop? So it's kind of both.
Hmm, neat. And so, because we have you here, I'm going to ask Damien a question. Damien, how much involvement did you have in the creation of the Kris Strom art that was used for the show?
So I created like a mood board, lots of character pictures and things like that, and then sent that over along with emotions and kind of a general personality and that sort of idea. And then we just kind of collaborated back and forth after a few sort of preliminary sketches.
Oh.
Yeah, so I mean, it was pretty involved.
Mhm.
So Lufe came up with some ideas, and then we kind of chatted over those with BP and Lufe as well until we kind of got sort of where I thought the character was, uh, emotion, personality wise, I think, more than anything else. But generally speaking, for me, I like to give the artist free reign to do whatever they want within the sort of parameters that I've set.
Yeah, I mean, then you give them the creative control. I mean, they are the artists, right?
Right, right.
Very neat. And Luffy, you've done a few pictures for Hallowed Haven so far, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your favorite piece you've done for Hallowed Haven?
Um. Oh, my favorite piece right now that's released is probably Artemis for Scion. I really liked how she turned out, especially I did a bunch of designs on the one bow arm that has a covering.
Mhm.
So it was really fun to do that one. Another one is one that isn't released yet, that's coming
Mm.
up. Very excited for it. It's a very cool piece.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah.
Oh, what's
Very
the
good.
name of that one? Just so we can look out for it.
Um, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that yet.
Yeah,
That was a
so this
leading
that might be
question.
that
Damien, you
may be
dog.
yeah, right? That may be a spilling the tea segment kind of
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
question, I think. Yeah. But very cool. Yeah, we enjoy the art. I mean, I think everyone was pretty happy with the arts. I know the chat was like, "Ooh, look at all this cool art."
I actually showed some of the art to a couple of my friends a little bit earlier, and they immediately set to trying to figure out what gods and pantheons the signs were connected to just from looking at the art themselves. And I was like, that's kind of opposite of what they went for, but good on you for trying at least.
Yeah, but the fact
Except for Chris, they immediately figured out that he was a sign of Loki by
yeah,
blood,
right?
Oh,
not
really?
by choice.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of what you want as an artist, right? People to be thinking about your art and trying to like find your little hidden gems inside.
Yeah, and, just even seeing, like, people get excited over it, it really like, it warms my heart because when you do art, you put a lot of it's a lot of people asking what you want, but then you put a little bit of yourself into it, so seeing other people get as excited as you are, it really warms your heart. It makes you even more excited to see, all of these characters that you're not sure about, but then you see them and you're like, "Oh, that's exactly how I thought they would act, and that's oh, yeah, that voice, it fits them perfectly."
Nice.
So, yeah.
Very cool.
Damien, while we have you here, Chris has been through a bit of a ringer lately, figuring out he has a brother, potentially has a connection to the wolves. How is Chris feeling with all of this coming at him all at once from every angle?
I mean, he's been pretty overwhelmed from day one. So he's been trying to kind of lean into what he knows best. And the problem being is what he knows best is music. And that doesn't really fit the world that he currently finds himself in. So he is absolutely overwhelmed, especially in the last session with the whole we want you to go off and act as bait. He's like, well, I don't really know exactly what's going on, and I'm not very good at lying, and I don't really want to die, and if I go into this situation, I'm probably going to get my butt handed to me. And so he's very worried. He's very worried about all of this.
Yeah, and I just wanted to touch on that for a minute. Sorry, it's all. There's a little bit of a meta thing going on there, isn't there? Because like you're like Kris doesn't know acting, but you could act,
Right, I could. Yeah,
but Kris is not you. You and Kris are different people.
that's
I thought
true.
that was real fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the only parts last night that I really got involved in due to my migraine, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Every kind of, I didn't have my headset on because the pressure on my head was too much. But
sure.
yeah,
Sorry, I didn't mean
Okay,
to jump in front of you, Solomon.
it's perfectly
That was
fine.
something.
You gotta do with what you can with what you got.
yeah.
Uh, Even with all that he's been overwhelmed with, what is your favorite thing that has happened to Kris so far, and what is Chris's favorite thing that he's done so far?
My favorite thing is always going to be the interactions that I have with the other players and building those sort of like character arcs that you can see develop from the start to the finish of a campaign. And I think probably my favorite one is the interactions that I have with Oliver. Um, the gentle sort of ribbing, the needling, the elbowing in the side sort of thing, but all done with love and very, very good naturedly. That's probably my favorite thing as Damien, the actor. That's what I get off on the role playing. Chris's favorite thing has been definitely probably jumping from that third story building with the two twins under his arm and basically saying, this is me. Here I am. This is what I do. And I've finally got a chance to be able to show you. That's probably my favorite point.
Nice.
Absolutely fair. Can I honestly, I personally agree. I love a good superhero leap and landing. That really appealed to me too.
Right.
Yeah, in the chat when that was going on, I was kind of doing the thing from Deadpool, like, oh, superhero landing, superhero landing.
It's bad for your knees.
Excellent.
Luffy, we're just curious because we're getting to know you a little. What experience do you have with role playing games?
Yeah, actually, I have a lot of experience with them. My dad used to play D&D in high school.
You
So
do?
as a kid, it's always great when you have a legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as a kid, he used to run like small D&D campaigns for me and my cousins. So it started probably when I was like 10, 12. And then once the pandemic hit, I really got into role-playing games to just like have a connection with people, find new people. And ever since then, I've been in like 4 different campaigns. I'm running my own. Um, and it's been a pretty big part of my life, which is awesome. It's a great community, and it's great for art. It has inspired me a lot for my art. So yeah.
Yeah, and with the pandemic, like all of the different ways to connect with people via like online has really changed it up for a lot of players, I
Mhm.
think.
Yeah, and I
Um,
find a lot of players are starting D&D, and kind of finding it after the like during and after the pandemic, which is kind of really enlarged the community.
mhm. Yeah, there's like as a person that's been around for a goodly amount of time and as a designer of my own games, I know there's like this feeling among some people that's like, oh, I was in it before all of these newbies started joining, but I'm on the other side being like, hey, listen, all those newbies, they're cool, and they're out there now making this all very cool. So you can talk to your friends and be like, oh yeah, I play role playing games, and now they're like, oh, cool. But like, 10 years ago, you're like, I play role playing games, and you get like that look of like, oh, okay, and like eyes gloss over.
Yeah, it's the difference of I'm in a basement with 4 other nerds versus, I'm going to a cafe that does D&D.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And there are cafes that just do D&D now.
Yeah, it's insane. There's one close to where I live. They have D&D themed bar. It's really cool.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, there's one near me as well.
Nice.
I'm not so lucky, though. I do have a really good game store that has a whole lot of room for D&D or Magic or any sort of board games that people are wanting to play, as long as they call ahead to rent the room out.
Yeah, there are D&D themed cafes and bars now in where I live, but the two of the major game stores in my area have always had like a cafe or bar in them. And when these sort of competitors jumped in, they've like built on that. So they renovated, and now like there's one, like the bar takes up half of the place, and it's kind of cool and kind of fun.
Damn.
Yeah.
That sounds really
But
fun.
yeah, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Let's get to know you guys a little bit more. So I have a random question, or seems like a random question that isn't about the show or about what you do. If you were, this is to get to know you. If you were stuck on an abandoned island and had just one meal you had to eat every day until you were rescued, potentially years later, what would that meal be?
Hmm. That's a good question.
It is a good question. I'll let you go first.
Oh, okay. I was hoping you would. Uh, uh,
Gotcha.
I should have jumped in first and said, yeah, you can go. I would say probably an egg in a hole. That's like the one thing I could eat every single day.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
Fair enough.
Interesting. There's me thinking all grand, and you're going, yeah, egg in a hole.
If it's too
And
rich, you're gonna get sick of it. But egg in a hole, it's like it's greasy enough, but there's also like crunchy, simple protein.
you know, that's a really, really good idea. And
Yeah.
I was I've got two ideas, and I can't decide between the two of them. And they're like my two favorite things. It's either going to be a chicken tikka madras Indian curry,
Mhm.
because I love
Ooh.
that. But the whole, you're right about the whole spicy thing. And
Mm.
the other thing that I really, really miss from my days back in the UK is something called a full English breakfast. So I'm
With
actually
the
going to probably go with full English breakfast.
with the beans and tomato slices?
Not with tomatoes, though, because I hate them, but definitely with beans.
Okay, that's a respectable answer.
Preach.
Right.
Yeah, right. Nice. Those are good choices. If you were stuck on an island, like those are the kinds of things that you probably couldn't go wrong with over time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially given the English breakfast is like a full platter of all types of different flavors all at
Mhm.
once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Luffy, I'm curious to know how does an artist solicit the studio to be chosen for their art, or did the studio approach you?
So I started in a campaign with Legacy, one of the higher ups in the studio, and she approached me because I had done some art for her characters in the past.
So they knew what you could do and were like, "Hey, we want your skills."
Yeah, yeah. It was really cool. I wasn't expecting it. I just got a message one day like, "Hey, I have something for you." And I was like, "I'm listening." So yeah, it's been really unexpected, but really fun.
And what was that campaign? Curious minds would like to know.
Oh, what was the first campaign? I'm trying to think. I have to look back at my art for that. I think I had like two campaigns to start off with at once.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Were they both D&D? That's the question.
Neither of them were D&D. I don't think.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I'd have to look back just to
Okay.
see.
That's fine. It's fine. I was just curious. It's not a serious question. But okay, very cool. Well, are there things that you do to get in or stay in the artist mindset when you're working?
Yeah, I it depends on what I'm working on. Sometimes I'm just like in the mood to do art, so I just, completely block everything out and just do art straight for 12 hours. At other
Mhm.
times it's that kind of like nothing's flowing, so you have to I'll use like shows. I have like 20 different playlists with different vibes. Just whatever the character feels like. I really like to do shows that remind me of whatever character I'm working on. That really helps me kind of like get an idea for, maybe some clothing that they'd use, maybe some, I'd see like a cool tattoo or I'd see some cool hair. And I'd be like, oh, I want to add that. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, stuff like that. Any form of media really helps me get in kind of the creating mood.
Yeah, so Chris's mood board was perfect then.
Yes, it was honestly very, very helpful. Getting mood boards like that is one of my favorite things because it kind of takes a little bit of the work from me having to find references, and it gives like more of an idea of what the character is to the person because it's such a personal thing, and everyone's gonna visualize a character differently. So yeah, the mood board was really, really helpful.
Nice. Okay. Well, I think we've percolated enough. I think it's time to start drinking our coffee. Damien, the chat wanted to know if Kris had to battle any artist in a competition, musical artist, I assume. Who would that be? Who would be the most? Who would he be the most excited to challenge?
Oh, that's an easy one actually. Lemmy,
Oh man, you
because
can't
Lemmy
you
is
can't go
God,
wrong. You can't go wrong with the Killmeister.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, that would be an interesting match to see. See who could win that one. Might
Well,
be
Lemmy
hard
would
on
win it
Kris.
because Lemmy's God,
Well,
but
of
I would love
course.
to beat him.
Right. At least try. Right.
Right.
I mean, even if you know you're going to lose, you got to swing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of what the chat wants to know, Luffy. The chat wants to know, when it comes to art for shows, how much control has generally been left up to the artists? We know we talked about, like, in general, like the artist has their own say, but like for everything you've done for the studio, how much control has been left up to you?
I think it depends. It's kind of piece by piece basis, depending on how much the player wants to be involved. I've had some times where, there's mood boards and Pinterest boards, and, I'll add a sketch and they're like, oh, I want to add this and then this, which is amazing. I love the feedback. And they're more involved. But other times they'll just be like, I don't know, do something cool. And I get to kind of pull from other resources and do my own thing on it. So it's really player by player basis. Other than that, poses generally, I get to kind of play around with a little bit with guidance. So it's very collaborative.
Yeah, I could feel that I would having talked to some artists. I'm usually the guy that's just like, I don't know, put like a silver bracelet on and then some cool pose. I'm that guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a
honestly,
lot of
same.
people are that way. Yeah, or like a lot of times, they'll say like, oh, I want it to be like this, and then I'll draw that. They're like, ooh, I don't think I used the right words. I'm like, okay, I can kind of like guess what you mean by like the vibe that you've given, and I'll draw something different than what they wanted. And they'll be like, oh, that's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Yeah, you're not an AI, right? Like if they plug the
Yeah.
words in wrong, it's gonna come out weird, but you can adjust,
Yeah,
which is nice.
exactly. Yeah.
Did
And
you
kind of
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay.
Well, I was just gonna ask if you picked the color palette for the beige and confused squad.
Oh God. The color palette. Okay. So on character art forms, there are ideas for color palettes, what colors are generally with characters, a lot of times on their Pinterest boards, there'll be colors, but I did have final say on colors. And by the end of creating these characters, uh, I was asked, maybe not brown for this one. Which I didn't even notice until I exited the last character, because I'll usually do all the sketches, all the line art, and then all the color. I exited the last character for color and I looked, I was like, huh. Yeah, no, I see it. That's a lot of that's a lot of brown.
But
But yeah,
now it's kind of iconic for the beige and confused squad. So
exactly. Exactly. Happy little mistakes.
I mean, if it works, it works.
Exactly. Supposedly brown is a very common color for gods. I wouldn't have thunk that.
huh. I would have thought it was more black, but I guess maybe I'm wrong. Interesting. Well, Damien, how conflicted are you and also Kris knowing that your family may be the antagonists for this campaign?
Me as Damien, I love it. I think it's wonderful because it really gives me something for me to get my teeth into, which is every role player's dream, or at least every actor's dream. I mean, I can't speak to everybody,
Sure.
Having that kind of character arc, that's what excites me as an actor. Like my favorite movies being things like Phone Booth, which is single location in a phone booth, but it's all about
Mhm.
the journey that the character has from A to B. Kris, however, is kind of crapping himself. He hates it. He doesn't he doesn't want that sort of notoriety. He wants to be famous as a musician. He doesn't want to be famous for this or infamous for this in like any way, shape, or form. He does not want to be remembered for this. He wants to be remembered as being like a kick-ass singer. That's it.
Right.
Definitely makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of possibly being famous for this, let's talk a little bit more about the superhero jump from the balcony. That was all your idea, wasn't
Yeah, 100% my idea. Yeah, I thought to
it?
myself, like, I built my character to be able to jump tall buildings in a single bound. So I thought to myself, what's the quickest way I can get to the ground? I'll just jump off.
And
It's
like we
very blunt. I love it.
Yeah, and like we said, there was definitely like some chat about that. Everyone was excited for that particular moment.
I mean, as I said earlier, it's like Kris has come online now. This is him. This is what he does. The whole arrow thing that I did in conjunction with Oliver blowing up the car in a previous episode and killing one of the wolves, that was great, but that wasn't just Kris. That was actually Oliver suggesting, hey, shoot the gas tank. Whereas this was all Kris's idea. I can grab those, I can jump down, and I know I can do it safely, and I can get them to safety. And it's the quickest way we can get off of this building and into that vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, it was smart. It was a smart move.
Right. I mean,
So even
Smoke
though,
got him.
yeah, right. Well, even though Chris is supposedly not the intelligent one, that was a using your brain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Battle instincts versus book smarts.
exactly. Yeah, street smarts versus book smarts. Yeah.
And Luffy, we actually talked about this before we started the show, but we're going to bring it up again. You're following the show a little bit. You're just a little bit behind, aren't you?
Yeah. Unfortunately, with work, I haven't been able to keep up, but the episodes I've seen so far are absolutely amazing. Hilarious. I I I generally don't like laugh out loud to stuff, but the first few episodes I was dying with some of the role play that they had. Absolutely
Mhm.
amazing. I even made a few like little stickers that I showed to Legacy. Nothing scarier than the IRS, stuff like that.
Listen, if the Joker won't go against them, I don't want to go against them.
Exactly. I think we know
Yeah,
who the
that
true bad evil one in the campaign is. The IRS.
the IRS. Yeah, absolutely. That actually leads into a question because we were going to ask if you, when you follow along, do you make like new art as you go for just for funsies, maybe not even for commission? But it sounds like you kind of do.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when it's like little stickers that are kind of simple that I'll just, I'll be watching and I'll hear a line that I'm like, oh, that would be so funny. So I do that. I also have one that I made, which was, oh, what is it? I have it right here. It's, oh yeah, the pen is mightier than the sword on a ruler that I did for the second episode. So yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, it's fun and like I have a lot of connection to it. So um it feels like I'm really involved even more so than other media. So it's a really cool experience to be able to follow along with.
Do you follow the other projects you've worked on? Did you also follow along with those and stuff?
I try to as much as possible. Some of the one shots I wasn't able to
Sure.
watch yet, just because they're a real time investment, which is
Mhm.
unfortunate. But hopefully, I'll be able to get to them soon. Um, I'm trying to keep up with the media as much as possible.
Yeah, it was kind of like what we were saying before we started that like the length of time sometimes becomes a problem, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Still.
So I have a question for Damien.
Okay.
Uh, Chat and mostly Gary wants to know why Oliver is your favorite. Or well, actually, who is your favorite? But Gary would like to posit that it is in fact Oliver.
It's either Oliver or Coda, purely because I've had the most interaction with them, but it's probably going to be Oliver. And the reason being is because we are so dissimilar. We are the opposites. I am like of average intelligence. I think I've got intelligence of 2, which is human average. But I'm very physically active, whereas Oliver has got a much higher intelligence, but is far less physically active. So we're like the chalk and cheese. And I think that's why I like him so much. Whereas Sarah is a very strong individual, like Kris is, and Coda is very kind of fiery and I'm not going to say aggressive, but martially competent like Kris is. Oliver is the complete opposite in almost every way, and I think that's why I like him the most.
Do you think that that will be strengthened, or that something might be lost whenever Oliver has to work to complete his gauge?
No, I think that'll be strengthened because it'll be us forming a bond together. It'll be me kind of teaching him the whole wax on, wax off sort of. This is how to paint the fence uh, experience, and I think that's what's going to bring us closer. Certainly, that's how I feel it's going to happen anyway.
I'm gonna remember that phrase "chalk and cheese." I'd never heard it before, but it makes sense.
Right.
But also, you know what you just described. There was actually a particular moment in a recent episode where we saw that in action, right? Where Oliver was kind of dangling on the rope, and Kris just sort of rescued him.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, literally when we were spelunking in the cave. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That polar opposite, like in action, and then also how those two work together.
Right. And we've
Yeah,
worked together beautifully, with the whole arrow thing, and even all 4 of us driving in the car. So we've already proven that we're a well-oiled machine when we get together. So
yeah. That was actually the next question. Did you expect that getaway scene in the last episode, not the one that we just had, but did you expect it to go so smoothly, or were you just as stressed as the rest of us were?
oh no, I wasn't. I didn't expect that to go smoothly at all. I thought we were going to get our butts handed to us. I really, really did. I thought it was going to go horribly, horribly wrong for us. Um, and it just so happened that I think everybody came up with really good ideas of how to augment Sarah's driving so that we could maximize the chance of escape in different ways that played into their strengths. So I thought that was beautifully done by everybody.
Mhm. Yeah, we talked to Sarah about that, or we talked to Scion about that particular thing in the last After Dawn episode, and she said that like her favorite moment was being like baby driver, basically.
Right.
So yeah, so you all adding to her, like you guys playing into that amplified her like experience as a role player as well.
Oh, that's great. I mean, but that's what it's all about. And that's what it's all about for me, especially because I love role playing. I love those interactions. I love building character arcs from the start to the finish, all the way through. That's what gets me up. That's what gets me going. So,
I personally always love it whenever there's always time for each party member to have their moments, but when they come together and work together as a party and all make it out together as opposed to having to rely on just one person, I always think that that's fantastic.
yeah, me too.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about games where you have like the rogue or whatever going off and doing their own thing, but I think that when like the whole point you're there, right, is to make a party and cohesively solve a problem and get through it together. So
Right.
seeing that seeing that and being part of that is like the best part of the role playing game experiences.
Yeah, that's how I feel as well.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's about time to spill the tea, don't you?
I think so.
So I have a question that actually is going to go a little bit off of our script that we have here. I have a
Mhm.
question for Damien. What is more important to Kris? Taking down his brother and saving and making sure that he and his friends are safe, or doing what Artemis wanted and finding and being a hunter for the truth and finding out more about possibly what happened with Loki?
Oh, that's a good question.
Mhm.
I'm actually going to say the Artemis one, interestingly, and I don't know whether people expected me to say that, but I feel Kris wants to belong, and he found belonging through his music originally. And whilst that hasn't been taken away from him, he can still do that. He's in another family now. And that family involves effectively a foster mother, or a stepmother, depending on how you want to look at it. And I think he wants to make her as happy as he can possibly be first by doing what she needs him to do, so that he can then go off and do what he needs to do.
Makes sense.
Nice. Oh, and because this is the first time that Luffy's been on our show, this is actually the time too. If you have questions or anything you want to add or whatever, this is the time to do it in the show. Just a heads up.
Oh, okay.
But you
I
don't
try.
have to. I'm just saying it's
Okay.
the opportunity. The opportunity is here. But I do have a question for you. Is
Oh.
there any piece of art that you didn't like and wish you could redo?
Oh. Oh, that is a hard question. I would have to say, I think one of the first commissions I did, one of the two that I had ongoing was Lady Afterwards, I believe. I think I would want to redo those just because I've developed a lot as an artist since then. And looking back, I definitely see some places, especially like the gestures, some of the colors that I picked, I could have definitely done a better job on now. And I could have developed them a little bit further. I think I would really like to redo those. And they were really fun characters to work on. The concepts were really cool. We had a very big Art Deco theme going, which was really interesting. So I think I'd like to play with that a little bit more if I could. Yeah.
Well, there
Spoken
is
like
the
a true
possibility of
artist.
things happening, so who knows?
Hmm?
Who knows? Maybe.
Yeah, but you basically said what all creatives out there think. Like they look at their old stuff and like, oh God, that was so bad.
What
Yeah.
is wrong with past me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to look at my old stuff just because it makes me feel better about the stuff I do now. Because I'll make small mistakes. Now I'm like, oh, why would I do that? And then I look back, I'm like, no, I've developed so much from where I was, even like not even a year ago. Um, and that's another great thing about having commissions is that they really push you out of your comfort zone. Especially even working on Kris. I'd never really done like a dirty look for clothing before, so I had to kind of, grunge up the clothes, which was really cool to play around with textures and colors. And grunge up the hair too. I wasn't sure how I was going to do that. I know we went back and forth a little bit with that because it was something I hadn't done before. And I kept on needing a little bit of, maybe some more of this, maybe some more of that. Which now I absolutely love grunging up stuff. It's very fun to do.
Nice. So you can grunge up in the future now.
Yeah.
Now it's a part of your repertoire.
hmm
Mhm.
Everything grungy.
Mhm.
I feel like
Yeah.
that'd be a really weird shop.
Everything grungy.
Everything. Yeah. I see it in malls. The thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Got to copyright that before someone steals the idea.
Yeah.
It's just a really expensive secondhand store.
Oh, you've been to LA then?
I was about to say. I think I've been to that store then.
So,
Damien, what are?
Damien,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
I would like to know something very important from Damien. What are the chances, now knowing that he really wants to search for the truth and to find what is actually going on and what's happening? What are the chances that he's going to switch sides?
Oh, he's not. He's not going to switch sides. He is very much a good guy. He does not want to be a bad guy. He doesn't want to have to deal with all of that backstabbing, like rubbish. On no, none of that. He's never going to swap sides, at least not willingly. Anyway, I the way I put him together, he is pretty kind of straight down the line good guy. He doesn't really. It's what he said in the last game. that he doesn't really know how to lie. He doesn't. He's not very good at it because he's traded on his looks and he's traded on his musical talent pretty much since he came of age. So he doesn't need to lie or bullshit because he doesn't need to. So I don't want him to be a bad guy. And I think even as Damien, I will fight against him becoming a bad guy because that's not how I see Kris, and that's definitely not how Kris sees Kris either.
That's absolutely fair. You gotta know where you stand.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting aspects of like whether or not, right, the bad guys are actually bad. I mean, we know they're bad by their actions, but like what if they're fighting for something that they deem to be good, right? So that's the push pull that you should always get with antagonists, I think, in a lot of games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then
Hey,
if you think about it, every single bad guy in the history of every single kind of media never thinks they're a bad guy. They always think they're doing the right thing. Even in real life, look at some of the most evil people in humanity. They do not believe they were evil. They believe what they were doing was right. And
mm,
you have to have that mindset, regardless of whether you're good or evil, that what you're doing is right. Otherwise, everything's going to fall apart.
mhm,
Absolutely.
yeah.
But of
Well,
course,
Luffy,
I'm sorry, Carl.
I
no, you keep going, keep going.
I was going to say, but that of course doesn't mean that to the wider society, what the actions these people are doing were 100% evil.
mm,
Right. It's a spectrum, right?
Exactly.
Well, Luffy, we've been teased Titans in the show, and maybe we've been teased from you that there might be other art that we haven't seen yet. Can you tell us if you've made any cool Titan art, or is that like a trade secret? And if you haven't, would you want to?
if I haven't, I would absolutely love to. Uh, I have not been given the go ahead to say anything
Mm.
else on that,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't want to step on any toes. Um,
Mm.
but I would absolutely love to. Um, if if we do in the future,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that would be really really cool. I love the concept, and they're very fun to do the art for. So
Mm-hmm. I like how you didn't give anything away there.
Yeah. Such an answer to the side.
of course, I worked very well with PR.
Fair enough.
I do have one question for Damien about Kris.
Mm.
I'm not sure if this was asked before, but what really shifted in Kris's perception of himself after finding out who his father was? And has it affected, you know, how kind of like his actions in role play?
Mm.
Well, Chris has always been into the Norse pantheon, but he always considered it as not really true, just like a myth and a legend. Um, but something that had in some aspects, some lofty ideals and lofty goals and things to aspire to. And now that he knows that it's true and that he's actually the son of somebody that he doesn't much like or respect, then he does feel unhappy by that, which is one of the reasons I think why he was very happy to take the olive branch offered by Artemis, because then he could not disavow his real father, but he could kind of almost sweep it under the rug and forget about it for a bit and just latch on to this other person who actually is a good person, Artemis, who actually wants him rather than maybe an absent father.
Yeah. I really like the storyline of Kris and Artemis, especially like the found family that you see a lot in the character interactions. I think it's a
Yeah.
very really cool dynamic to see.
I agree.
And it's lovely in that I was the only character who wasn't actually an orphan to start with.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, and that dynamic of like you're the only one like in like other parents, but in like the god side, you're the only
Right.
one that isn't. I thought that was really cool too.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I loved everything about that.
Hmm.
I actually have a question sort of for both of you. So the art for both Chris and his brother, his brother has the tattoo of the design of the wolf on his arm, whereas has the design of what looks to be Jormungandr. Is that meant to represent anything,
Um,
or can you not say anything?
I honestly do not know. I with a lot of this art, tattoos are specified. So I will design a tattoo based on what people ask. So I'm not sure. I, you
So
know,
if
yeah.
so what you're saying is if there is a play on it, you're actually kind of in the dark.
Yeah, I am.
Hmm. Interesting.
So from Chris's perspective, from my perspective, I've got a few tattoos. I mean, I've got a
Mhm.
complete sleeve. I've got them over my chest, and everything, and you've never seen them um, because the artwork doesn't have him stripped to the waist. But I do have like Jormungandr, the world serpent, wrapped around one arm, simulating the the beginning, the middle, and the end of everything. But also on the other shoulder, I have the eight-pointed chaos rune as well, which is something that is quite looked down on because it represents the forces of chaos. You know, the things that people fear, very powerful emotions and things like that. So um, the tattoos are very, very significant to Chris. They're not just affectations at all.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you
And
think
as
if
a as
Chris had any ties to Jormungandr, he would play on those?
I don't know. Honest answer. I don't know whether he would because he. I've I created Chris to see all of this as there's ideologies to follow rather than as literal truths that we now know they are with the existence of these actual gods. Um, so I honestly don't know how Chris would feel about that until the situation arose, and then I would probably just have to make a decision in the moment and go with it.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
it's a tricky one. That
yeah. I mean, I like the idea that the players and SPCs and storytellers have maybe an idea, but they've gone so far as to hide it from even the artist. That's pretty fun, actually.
yeah,
Yeah, no
It,
kidding.
it le- yeah, it leaves a little bit to reveal later that even the artist, like you, Luffy, can like see in the episode and be like, "Oh, mind blown."
Yeah. A lot of the stuff I was not expecting with the art. I I don't get as much information as you'd think about the story. Mostly just about characters.
Mm.
Um, but a lot of times, even with some of the gods, I was like, "Oh, interesting." I was not sure who Artemis was going to be used for. I had no idea.
Mm.
I had no clue until I watched the episode and I was like, "Oh, oh, okay. That's really cool."
It's like, yeah, can you make this person and we'll slot them in as necessary.
Yeah, pretty much.
Hmm.
But it makes it fun for me because I don't have as many spoilers, so I can watch and still be, surprised.
Yeah, be a fan as well as
Mm.
the artist. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I already have the fan art for it.
Beautiful.
Well, does anyone have any more questions? No? All right. Well, I wanted to give you guys the opportunity. We've been doing this has been a pretty fun episode. It's been great to have these interactions, to hear what the art is like. And these episodes drop on Thursdays at noon for those that are on the Patreon at the $5 tier or more, and they're released to the public 1 month later. So if you're listening to this, on YouTube or something, that's because you're a month late and your news is old by now. So think about subscribing so you can be up to date with your talk news for Hallowed Haven Studios. And that's it. Thanks everyone for coming on the show and talking to us about stuff. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
Always
having
a
us.
pleasure.